You are standing on a rooftop in Gaza City. Below you, the streets are filled with faces that have been shaped by displacement. Some are reading on their phones, in old books, a name that is 800 years old. Asaph, a man who sat down and wrote about this moment, about this land, about your neighbors. And he didn't just mention one nation. He listed 10. And if you knew their ancient names and then looked at a modern map, you would understand something most people have completely missed. I'm not here to scare you. I'm here to show you something that most people have never connected. By the end of this video, you're going to understand why one ancient psalm contains the names of 10 nations that are still aligned against one tiny country. And you'll know exactly why this matters right now. Let's open the scroll. The psalm is called Psalm 83, and it's a prayer, a cry, written by a man named Asaph around 500 BC. In the King James Version, it reads like this: O God, keep not thou silence, hold not thy peace, and be not still, O God. It's an urgent plea. God, don't stay quiet. Don't remain unmoved. But the urgency isn't about Israel's weakness. Look at what comes next in verses 5 through 8. Asaph says, For lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people, and consulted against thy hidden ones. Translation, there is a confederacy, a conspiracy, and Asaph names them all, specifically by the ancient names of their peoples. Verse 6 and 7 list them: the tabernacles of Edom and the Ishmaelites, of Moab and the Hagrites, Gebal and Ammon and Amalek, the Philistines with the inhabitants of Tyre. Edom, Ishmaelites, Moab, Hagrites, Gebal, Ammon, Amalek, Philistia, Tyre, 9 names. But there's a 10th. Verse 8, Assyria also is joined with them. They have hope in the children of Lot. 10. There are exactly 10. And I want you to understand something. In ancient prophecy, numbers matter. 10 is not accidental. 10 nations, 10 confederates, 10 distinct peoples who, according to Asaph, will unite with a single purpose: to erase Israel from the map. Now, I want to be clear about something. We're looking at this as students of history and scripture. This isn't about predicting the future. This is about understanding patterns. What was written 800 years ago, what we see today, and the remarkable alignment between them. But to understand why this matters, to truly comprehend what Asaph was describing, we need to go back, further back. We need to understand who these 10 nations actually were. But here's where it gets remarkable. Every single one of these 10 nations that Asaph named, they were real. They existed. And in the next section, you're going to see how the ancient world knew them and what archaeology has uncovered about the prophecy itself. Let's go back in time, into the world where those 10 nations weren't just names. The world where these 10 nations actually existed as distinct, documented peoples. Let's start with geography. Israel, in the time of Asaph, was surrounded to the south and southeast Edom, a kingdom carved into the mountains south of the Dead Sea. Not a myth, a real kingdom with real kings, Edomites, descendants of Esau, Jacob's brother. To the north, Moab, another kingdom, sitting in the high plains east of the Jordan River. Again, not a story, not a legend, a place with cities, Rabbah, Dibon, places archaeologists have dug up and found evidence of dense settlement, trade routes, and military fortifications. The Moabites, descendants of Lot, Abraham's nephew. And there's a third kingdom in the Jordan Valley, Ammon, the Ammonites. They controlled the headwaters, the trade routes, Their capital was Rabbah, which later became Philadelphia, and then Ammon. Ammon still exists today, the same city, 3,000 years later. To the west, Philistia, 5 coastal cities: Gaza, Ashkelon, Ashdod, Gath, Ekron, the Philistines. A maritime civilization, potters, warriors. They left behind massive pottery shards that archaeologists still find today. We know them from ancient Egyptian records. We know them from the Tel Dan stele, a stone carving from the 9th century BC that mentions the House of David, proving that David wasn't myth, but a real historical figure whose lineage was documented. And north of the Philistines' Tyre, Lebanon, a city so powerful that the prophet Ezekiel devoted an entire prophecy to its destruction. Tyre controlled trade, purple dye, timber. It was a superpower of the ancient world. And there are more. The Ishmaelites, the Arabian peoples. The Hagrites, another Arab confederation. The Amalekites, wandering tribes of the Negev. Gabal modern Byblos in Lebanon. All of them documented, all of them real. What Asaph did was extraordinary. He didn't just imagine enemies. He didn't dream up nations. He listed 10 actual peoples from 10 actual geographical regions that surrounded and opposed Israel. And he wrote this down. But here's the stunning part. For 500 years, this prophecy seemed like history, like a prayer about past conflicts. The Philistines disappeared from history. Tyre was destroyed. Edom fell. Moab was absorbed. It seemed like Asaph was just recording old tribal grudges. But something changed. And this is where the story gets remarkable. In 1948, Israel was reborn as a state. And suddenly, those ancient enemies weren't just history anymore. The nations Asaph named their descendants, their lands. Their governments began to actively oppose Israel again. Jordan, Saudi Arabia, the Palestinian territories, Lebanon, Syria, Turkey, Egypt, Yemen, Iraq. Each one is either a direct descendant of one of Asaph's 10 nations, or they house the people groups he mentioned. The geography didn't change. The ancient map still exists. And now, in 2024, 2025, 2026, we're watching something unprecedented unfold. Not just separate conflicts, but coordinated opposition from nations that occupy the exact same lands. Described in a 800-year-old prayer. But wait, there's more. Because not only are these nations still here, not only do they still oppose Israel, but something has shifted recently. Something that Psalm 83 specifically predicted. They've started to unify. Let's overlay these two timelines, ancient and modern. Asaph names Edom. And today, Edom's descendants live in southwestern Jordan, the West Bank, and southern Israel. They call themselves Palestinians. They oppose Israel actively. Asaph names the Ishmaelites, the Arabian peoples. Today, they control Saudi Arabia, Yemen, the UAE, Qatar, some of the most powerful nations in the Middle East. And through their support for proxy forces, Hamas, Houthi, Hezbollah, they actively oppose Israel. Asaph names Moab, central Jordan today. Jordan's government maintains official peace with Israel. But Moab's people are sympathetic to Palestinian causes. They share borders. They share grievances. Asaph names the Hagrites northeastern peoples. Today, that's the region controlled by Syria and Iraqi Kurds. Syria hosts Iran's military apparatus, a clear anti-Israel position. But we're not done. There are still more nations on Asaph's list. The Philistines, Gaza today. The people there directly oppose Israel, actively, through Hamas, through armed resistance. They occupy the exact territory Asaph named 800 years ago. and Tyre, modern-day Lebanon. Lebanon hosts Hezbollah, an Iranian proxy, with an estimated 150,000 missiles pointed at Israel. Hezbollah's stated goal is the destruction of Israel. Gebal, also in Lebanon. Ammon, the capital of Jordan. Amman, Amalek, the southern Negev, now part of Israel. And finally, Assyria, modern-day Syria and northern Iraq, where ISIS emerged, where Iran has established military bases. The pattern isn't just historical. It's present, it's real, and it's coordinated. What started as separate conflicts is now one coordinated network. Not just 10 independent enemies, but 10 connected pieces of a single strategy. For the first time in history, they're moving together. And this is where it changes everything. In the past century, Israel faced enemies one at a time. Wars with Egypt, conflicts with Jordan, skirmishes with Philistine groups, attacks from Tyre. But those conflicts were separate, divided, weakened. Something shifted recently. The Abraham Accords brought Israel closer to some Arab nations. Saudi Arabia, UAE, Bahrain. And paradoxically, that made the opposing coalition tighter, more desperate, more coordinated. Today, Hamas receives weapons from Iran. Hezbollah is funded by Iran. Houthis are armed by Iran. Palestinian groups are supported by Qatar, Turkey, and Syria. It's not 10 separate wars anymore. It's one asymmetric conflict with 10 fronts, all coordinated, all aimed at the same goal. And Asaph, 800 years ago, didn't just predict these 10 nations would exist. He predicted they would conspire together. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thy hidden ones. Psalm 83:3. They, together, the confederacy. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. This is happening right now. In 2024, 2025, 2026. The Gaza war, the Houthi attacks on shipping, Hezbollah's constant provocations, Iran's explicit statements that Israel will be destroyed. But here's the important part. This isn't chaos. This is precision. A man named Asaph wrote down 10 specific names, 10 specific nations. Not 9, not 11, 10. And 800 years later, every single one of those nations is either directly opposing Israel or hosting forces that do. The question isn't whether this is accurate. The accuracy is undeniable. The real question is, what does it mean? But before we answer that, you need to understand something deeper. Something that transforms this prophecy from historical pattern to personal meaning. What does it mean that a man living 800 years ago could write about this moment with such precision? It means God knows the future. It means he's not surprised by any of this. It means that in the middle of headlines and wars and geopolitical chaos, there's a plan that was written before any of us were born. For those of you watching from Gaza, from Lebanon, from Syria, from Jordan, from the West Bank, you're living in a prophecy. Your home was named in an ancient text, and that name wasn't random. It wasn't accidental. Your very existence as a people group, your struggles, your conflicts, your resilience, is part of something God saw coming. That's not something to fear. That's something to understand. And if you're diaspora, if you're African American, if you're Caribbean, if you're descended from African peoples scattered by the Middle East conflicts, this matters even more. You carry the DNA of these ancient peoples. Your heritage is woven into this prophecy. You're not watching history. You're witnessing your history unfold. The question isn't, will this prophecy come true? It's already coming true. The question is, what does it mean for your future, your faith, your understanding of yourself and God's plan? And the answer is simple. You are not forgotten. You are not abandoned, even in the middle of geopolitical chaos, even when the world seems to care only about nations and power. You individually, personally, are seen by a God who knew your ancestors' names before your ancestors were born. That's what Asaph was saying. O God, keep not thou silence. Don't stay quiet. Don't look away. We see what's happening. We're watching. We're faithful. We come before you as students of your word. We've traced the maps, followed the names, seen the patterns that you've woven into history. We ask not for fear, but for eyes to see, not for despair, but for courage. And if anyone watching this is living in one of these nations, if they're displaced, if they're afraid, meet them right where they are. Remind them that in a God who names nations thousands of years before they exist, there is a purpose. And in that purpose, they are not forgotten. Your word remains, your plan unfolds, and in the middle of everything shaking, give us peace. Amen. Remember where we started, standing on that rooftop in Gaza, feeling confused, wondering how an ancient text could possibly speak to what's happening right now? Now you know. You're not confused anymore. You understand what's happening. And more importantly, you understand that you're part of something bigger than the news cycle. You're part of God's story. A story written 800 years ago. A story still unfolding. Here's what I want you to do. First, share this. Send this to someone you trust. Someone who's confused by the news. Someone who's wondering if faith still matters. Because it does. And they need to know. Second, comment below. Tell me which of these 10 nations surprises you most, and what does this prophecy mean for your country, for your life? And third, subscribe, because we're not done. Next week, we're looking at one nation that is conspicuously missing from Psalm 83. Why isn't Egypt listed here? Even though Egypt surrounds Israel, the answer involves a 3,000-year-old peace treaty that somehow still stands. And it's a story about how even in prophecy, God sometimes chooses mercy over judgment. But before you go, I want to leave you with this. In the middle of chaos, in the middle of headlines that seem to confirm our worst fears, there is a plan, a timeline, a God who sees the end from the beginning. And you're part of that story, not as a victim of history, but as a witness to prophecy, as someone who now understands that your faith isn't naive. It's rooted in something real, something that was written before kingdoms rose and fell, something that will stand when empires collapse. Your faith matters, and so do you. Subscribe, comment, share, and I'll see you next week.